Jake Morrison pressed his back against the cold metal wall of the space station corridor. His heart was beating fast, but he forced himself to stay calm. 3 years. 3 long years of pretending to be someone else, and today everything would change. He looked at his reflection in the polished wall surface. The face staring back at him was not his own. Purple skin, yellow eyes, and strange markings across his forehead made him look like a Zephyrian trader. The biosynthetic mask felt heavy on his face, but it had kept him alive for 3 years on Kepler 7 station. Jake touched the small device behind his ear. It changed his voice to sound like the clicking, whistling language of the Zephyrians. 2. Everyone on the station. He was Kethvar, a middle-level trade representative who sold mining equipment. Nobody suspected he was actually Dr. Jake Morrison, a human xenobiologist and former Navy intelligence officer. The message had arrived that morning through encrypted channels, an invitation to a special seminar. The title made his blood run cold. The Human Problem, Final Solutions. Jake had spent 3 years gathering information about threats to Earth, but nothing had prepared him for this. He walked through the busy corridors of the station, past aliens of dozens of different species. Some looked like giant insects, others like walking trees, and some were just floating balls of light. Kepler 7 was known as the crossroads of the galaxy, where different alien civilizations came to trade and talk politics. Jake had been sent here by Earth's intelligence service after humanity's first contact with alien life. The government wanted to know what other species thought about humans. Were they friends or enemies? The answer, Jake was learning, was much more complicated than anyone had imagined. The seminar invitation came from something called the Dominion Council. Jake had heard whispers about this group during his time on the station. They were supposedly a secret alliance of the most powerful alien civilizations in the galaxy. If they were holding a seminar about eliminating humans, it meant trouble. Jake made his way to the restricted diplomatic sector of the station. This area was heavily guarded, and only the most important aliens were allowed inside. His fake identity as a trade representative barely qualified him for access, but somehow the invitation had gotten him through security. The conference facility was unlike anything Jake had seen before. The walls seemed to absorb light, making the room feel dark and threatening. Rows of seats faced a large holographic display area. Jake counted about 200 aliens in attendance, representing species from across the galaxy. He found his assigned seat in row 3. The irony was not lost on him. He was literally sitting in the middle of a conference about destroying his own species. And none of these aliens had any idea. As Jake settled into his seat, he studied the other attendees. His training had taught him to recognize the different alien species and their political importance. What he saw made his stomach turn. These were not just random aliens with a grudge against humanity. These were military leaders, scientists, and politicians from some of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. In the front row, he spotted High Consul Vextheri of the Hegemony, a species that controlled hundreds of star systems. 3 seats away sat General Korth Zane of the Altarian Defense Force, aliens that Earth considered friendly trading partners. Dr. Quinn Nala, a famous xenopsychologist, was reviewing notes on her datapad. Jake's hands began to sweat inside his alien disguise. These were not fringe extremists or terrorist groups. These were the leaders of established governments that Earth had diplomatic relations with. Some of them had even signed peace treaties with humanity. The lights in the room began to dim, and a hush fell over the crowd. Jake activated the recording device hidden in his clothing. Whatever happened in this room, Earth needed to know about it. He had spent 3 years building his cover identity for moments like this. A figure stepped onto the stage. It was High Consul Vexthari, his tall, thin frame casting an eerie shadow in the dim light. When he spoke, his voice carried clearly through the room's sound system. "Welcome, colleagues, to this historic gathering," the High Consul began. "We are here today to discuss the greatest threat our galaxy has ever faced. A threat that grows stronger with each passing day. A threat that, if left unchecked, will destroy everything we have built over thousands of years." Jake felt his mouth go dry. He knew what was coming next, but hearing it spoken aloud made it real in a way that terrified him. "The threat," Vexthari continued, "is humanity." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Jake forced himself to stay perfectly still, even though every instinct told him to run. He was one man alone, surrounded by hundreds of aliens who wanted his entire species dead. "Today, we will discuss practical solutions to the human problem," the High Consul announced. "We will share intelligence, coordinate our efforts, and finalize our plans. When we leave this room, we will have set in motion the events that will ensure humanity never again threatens galactic peace." The crowd erupted in applause. Jake sat frozen in his seat, clapping along with the others while his mind raced. This was bigger than anything Earth's intelligence services had imagined. This was not just one hostile species or a small group of extremists. This was a coordinated effort by the galaxy's most powerful civilizations to commit genocide. As the first speaker took the stage, Jake realized that his 3 years of careful preparation had led to this moment. He was humanity's only witness to their own death sentence. The question now was whether he would live long enough to warn them. The holographic display came to life with images that made Jake's blood run cold. Earth appeared in the center of the projection, rotating slowly as data streams flowed around it. Population numbers, military bases, colony locations, everything was there in perfect detail. High Consul Vexthari gestured toward the display with one of his long, thin arms. "Observe the human expansion pattern over the past 50 years, he said. "They have established colonies on 17 worlds, built space stations in 12 systems, and sent exploration ships to over 100 star systems." Jake watched as red dots appeared on the galactic map, showing human settlements and outposts. To him, it looked like natural exploration and growth. To the aliens in the room, it clearly represented something much more sinister. "Notice the strategic placement of their colonies," Vexthari continued. "They have positioned themselves along major trade routes and near resource-rich systems. This is not random expansion. This is calculated military positioning." Murmurs of concern rippled through the audience. Jake wanted to stand up and shout that they were wrong, that humanity was just trying to find new homes and resources, like any growing civilization. But he stayed silent, knowing that revealing himself would accomplish nothing except getting him killed. The next speaker was Dr. Quinn Nala, the xenopsychologist Jake had noticed earlier. She was a member of the Centauri Collective, a species that Earth had been trading with for over a decade. Her betrayal felt personal. "I have spent considerable time studying human psychology and behavior," Dr. Quinn Nala began. "What I have discovered is deeply troubling. Humans are not like other species in the galaxy. They are apex predators with pack-hunting instincts that have been refined over millions of years of evolution." She activated her own holographic display, showing brain scans and psychological profiles. Most species in the galaxy evolved from prey animals or peaceful herbivores. Humans evolved from persistence hunters who could track and kill prey much larger than themselves. This predatory nature is still present in every human, even those who claim to be peaceful. Jake felt sick listening to her analysis. She was taking humanity's greatest strengths and turning them into evidence of their danger. The determination and teamwork that had helped humans survive and thrive on Earth was being presented as a threat to galactic civilization. Furthermore, Dr. Quinn Nala continued, humans have an unprecedented ability to adapt to any environment. They can survive in conditions that would kill most other species. They can eat almost anything, tolerate extreme temperatures, and even survive in space with minimal protection. This adaptability makes them nearly impossible to contain or control. The display showed images of human settlements on ice worlds, desert planets, and even asteroid mining stations. Each image was labeled with data about the harsh conditions humans had learned to survive in. Most disturbing of all, the doctor said, is their emotional makeup. Humans form strong bonds with their family groups, but they also show remarkable aggression toward outsiders. They have a history of warfare that spans their entire recorded history. Violence is not just common among humans, it is celebrated in their culture. Jake's fists clenched as he watched footage of human military exercises and historical battles. The doctor was showing only the violent aspects of human culture, completely ignoring the art, music, literature, and philosophy that made humanity beautiful. General Korth Zane took the stage next. He was an Altarian, a species that had helped establish the Mars terraforming project. Jake had met with Altarian diplomats many times and considered them friends of humanity. The Altarian Defense Force has been monitoring human military capabilities, the general announced. What we have learned is that humans are not just aggressive, they are exceptionally good at warfare. Their military technology advances at a rate that far exceeds any other species in the galaxy. The display showed technical specifications for human weapons, ships, and defensive systems. Jake recognized many of the designs, but seeing them presented as threats to galactic peace made him realize how differently other species viewed humanity. More concerning is their tactical thinking, General Korth Zane continued. Humans do not fight wars the way other species do. They use deception, surprise attacks, and psychological warfare. They target civilian populations and infrastructure. They show no mercy to defeated enemies. Jake knew the general was describing military strategies that were common throughout the galaxy, but somehow when humans used them, they were seen as uniquely evil. The most shocking revelation came when the general began discussing recent events. Several incidents involving human colonies were not accidents as reported. They were field tests of new weapons and strategies. The destruction of the research station on Titan VII was our first successful test of a targeted electromagnetic pulse weapon. Jake's world collapsed around him. Titan VII had been presented as a reactor malfunction that killed 300 researchers and their families. Jake had known many of those people personally. Learning that they had been murdered as part of a weapons test filled him with rage that he struggled to contain. The mining accident on Kepler-2 was actually a test of our new seismic weapons. The general continued. The plague outbreak on New Colorado was a biological weapons test. Each incident provided valuable data about human weaknesses and responses to various threats. The room erupted in approving clicks and whistles from the alien audience. Jake sat in stunned silence, realizing that hundreds of his friends and colleagues had been killed not by accidents or natural disasters, but by deliberate acts of war. The final presentation of the day came from a scientist Jake did not recognize. She was a member of the Vorthan Syndicate, a species known for their advanced biotechnology. We have developed what we call the cleanser, the scientist announced. It is a biological weapon specifically designed to target human DNA. The weapon can be deployed through atmospheric seeding and will eliminate the entire human population of any planet within 6 months. Jake felt like he was going to be sick. The scientist continued explaining how the weapon worked, how it could be manufactured in large quantities, and how it would leave all human technology and infrastructure intact for alien colonization. The beauty of the cleanser, she said, is that it appears to be a natural plague. Human medical technology will not be able to develop a cure before the entire population is eliminated. To outside observers, it will appear that humanity simply fell victim to an unfortunate disease. As the first day of the seminar ended, Jake sat in his seat while the other aliens filed out of the room. He had learned more about the threats facing humanity than he had in 3 years of intelligence gathering. The scope of the conspiracy was beyond anything Earth had imagined. Jake realized that he was not just a witness to genocide planning. He was possibly humanity's only hope of survival. The question was whether he could get the information back to Earth before it was too late. Jake could barely sleep that night. His small quarters on the station felt like a prison cell as he processed everything he had learned. The images of the cleanser weapon kept playing in his mind, along with the casual way the aliens had discussed the murder of his friends on Titan-7. He forced himself to eat breakfast and maintain his routine as Kethvar, the Zephyrian trade representative. Other aliens nodded to him in the hallways, having no idea that he was the enemy they were planning to destroy. The irony would have been funny if the situation were not so terrifying. The second day of the seminar began with Commander Rix Theta taking the stage. She was a member of the Hegemony's military command and had a reputation for being completely ruthless. Jake had heard stories about her tactics during the Outer Rim conflicts. Today we will discuss Operation Silent Dawn, she announced. This is the coordinated strike that will eliminate the human threat once and for all. The holographic display showed a detailed timeline stretching over the next several months. Jake watched in horror as the aliens laid out their plan step by step. The attack will be launched simultaneously across all human worlds, Commander Rix Theta explained. We have identified 47 human colonies, 12 space stations, and of course, Earth itself. Each target will be hit at exactly the same time to prevent any warnings from being transmitted. Jake realized the brilliance of their strategy. If the attacks were coordinated perfectly, no human colony would have time to warn the others. Each world would face the biological weapon, thinking it was an isolated plague outbreak. The timing is crucial, the commander continued. The attack will commence in exactly 47 Earth days, during what humans call the Festival of Unity. This is a celebration where human populations gather in large cities across all their worlds. Our intelligence indicates that this will maximize casualties and minimize the chance of survivors escaping to remote areas. The Festival of Unity was Jake's favorite human holiday. It celebrated the diversity and cooperation that made humanity strong. The fact that the aliens were planning to use it as a weapon against his people made him sick with rage. Each world will be seeded with the cleanser using automated cargo vessels, Commander Rix Theta explained. These ships are already in position throughout human space, carrying what appear to be normal trade goods. The humans have no idea that their own shipping networks have been compromised. Jake watched as the display showed dozens of cargo ships moving through human space. Ships that he had probably seen at human ports, carrying what everyone thought were normal supplies and trade goods. The aliens had been planning this for years. The beauty of this approach, the commander said, is that the humans will never know what hit them. They will spend their final months trying to find a cure for what they think is a natural plague. By the time they realize it is a coordinated attack, it will be too late. The next speaker was Dr. Quinn Nala again, but this time she looked uncomfortable. Jake noticed that she kept glancing around the room as if she was having second thoughts about the whole plan. I have prepared psychological profiles of how humans will react to the cleanser, she said, but her voice lacked the confidence it had the day before. They will likely panic initially, but then they will work together to try to find a solution. This cooperation is one of their most dangerous traits, but it may also be their weakness. She activated her display, showing models of human behavior during crisis situations. Humans have a tendency to sacrifice themselves for others, particularly for their young. This means that even as they die, they will continue working to save their children. We must be prepared for desperate acts of heroism that could complicate our plans. Jake noticed that several aliens in the audience shifted uncomfortably when Dr. Queen Nala mentioned human sacrifice and heroism. It seemed that not everyone was completely comfortable with committing genocide, the revelation that shocked Jake. The most came from a representative of the Centauri collective. The Centauri had been humanity's primary trading partners for over a decade. Human children learned about Centauri culture in school, and many humans considered them to be their closest alien friends. The Centauri collective has been analyzing human supply chains for the past 5 years, the representative announced. We have detailed maps of every human trade route, every supply depot, and every critical resource. This information has been essential for planning the logistics of Operation Silent Dawn. Jake felt betrayed on a personal level. He had worked with Centauri traders many times during his cover identity. They had shared meals, told stories, and even exchanged gifts. All the while, they had been gathering intelligence to help murder his species. We have also been monitoring human communications, the Centauri representative continued. Their encryption methods are primitive by our standards. We have been reading their military communications, diplomatic messages, and even personal letters. For years, the humans have no secrets from us. The scope of the betrayal was staggering. Species that Earth considered allies had been spying on humanity for years, gathering information to plan their destruction. Jake wondered how many other friendly alien species were actually enemies in disguise. General Korth Zane returned to the stage with an update on military preparations. Altarian forces will be positioned near all major human worlds during Operation Silent Dawn, he announced. Our official mission will be to provide humanitarian aid during the plague outbreak. In reality, we will be there to prevent any humans from escaping and to secure their technology for our own use. The general activated a display showing Altarian fleet positions. We will also be monitoring human military responses. If any human forces attempt to investigate the true cause of the plague, they will be eliminated. We cannot allow them to discover that this is an attack rather than a natural disaster. Jake realized that the aliens had thought of everything. They had planned for every possible human response and had countermeasures ready. The coordination between different alien species was impressive and terrifying. During a break in the presentations, Jake overheard 2 Zephyrian officers talking quietly in a corner. One of them was expressing doubts about the whole operation. I understand the concern about human expansion, one officer said, but complete genocide seems extreme. Perhaps we could negotiate some kind of territorial limits instead. The other officer looked around nervously before responding. You cannot say such things here. The Dominion Council has already decided. Anyone who opposes Operation Silent Dawn will be considered a traitor to galactic security. Jake realized that not all aliens supported the plan to eliminate humanity. Some were afraid to speak out against it, but they had moral concerns about committing genocide. This gave him an idea. Perhaps he could use these divisions to his advantage. The final presentation of the day came from High Consul Vex Thari himself. He outlined the post-human galaxy and how the various alien species would divide up human territory and resources. Once the human threat is eliminated, he said, we will enter a new age of galactic peace and prosperity. The resources of 47 worlds will be available for colonization by deserving species. Human technology will be studied and improved upon. Their planets will be terraformed to suit our needs. Jake listened to the aliens, casually discussing the division of his people's homes and possessions. They spoke about human worlds like they were already empty real estate waiting to be claimed, not as the second day ended. Jake realized that he had learned the complete plan for humanity's destruction. The aliens had 47 days to execute Operation Silent Dawn. which meant Jake had 47 days to find a way to stop them. The problem was that he was one man, surrounded by hundreds of enemies, with no way to contact Earth directly. He needed to find a way to get this information to his people, but first he needed to survive long enough to escape the station. Jake began to form a desperate plan of his own. If he could not stop Operation Silent Dawn, perhaps he could at least give humanity a fighting chance. Jake stared at the ceiling of his quarters, his mind racing with possibilities. He had the information that could save humanity, but he was trapped on a station filled with enemies. Getting the intelligence back to Earth would be impossible if he could not first escape. But what if he did not need to escape? What if he could destroy the conspiracy from within? His years of intelligence training had taught him that the strongest alliances often had the deepest fractures. The Dominion Council represented 12 different species with 12 different agendas. They were united by their fear of humanity. But that might not be enough to hold them together if pressure was applied in the right places. Jake spent the night studying everything he knew about alien psychology and politics. Each species had their own culture, their own fears, and their own ambitions. If he could make them distrust each other, perhaps he could tear apart their alliance before Operation Silent Dawn could be launched. The third day of the seminar began with discussions about post-human territory distribution. Jake watched carefully as the various alien representatives argued about which species would get which human worlds. He could see the greed in their eyes as they looked at the holographic displays of human colonies. During the first break, Jake made his move. He approached a group of hegemony officers, still maintaining his disguise as Kethvar, the Zephyrian trader. "Excuse me," he said in his synthetic alien voice, "but I could not help overhearing some disturbing rumors about the Altarians. Are you aware that they have been secretly mapping the best human worlds for their own colonization?" The hegemony officers exchanged glances. "What do you mean?" one of them asked. Jake lowered his voice conspiratorially. "I have contacts in the shipping industry. They tell me that Altarian survey ships have been conducting detailed scans of human agricultural worlds. They are planning to claim the most fertile planets for themselves, leaving the rest of us with mining worlds and industrial colonies." He could see the suspicion growing in their eyes. The hegemony controlled hundreds of star systems, but most of them were resource poor. The idea that the Altarians might be planning to grab the best human worlds for themselves was exactly the kind of betrayal they would expect from their allies. Jake's next target was a group of Centauri diplomats. He approached them during lunch, pretending to be concerned about rumors he had heard. "I hope you are aware of what the hegemony is planning," he said quietly. "My sources tell me that they intend to use the cleanser technology against other species after the humans are eliminated. They see this as a test run for a much larger campaign of galactic conquest." The Centauri diplomats looked shocked. "That is impossible," one of them protested. "The hegemony signed the non-aggression pact with us." Jake shrugged. "Perhaps I am wrong, but I have heard that they consider the Centauri collective to be almost as dangerous as the humans. Something about your trading networks being a threat to their economic control." He could see the fear in their eyes. The Centauri were a peaceful species that relied on trade and diplomacy rather than military force. The idea that their allies might be planning to eliminate them was terrifying. Jake's most dangerous gambit came when he approached Dr. Quinn Nala privately. She had seemed uncomfortable during the previous day's presentations, and Jake sensed that she might be having second thoughts about the genocide. "Doctor," he said, "I need to speak with you about something urgent. I have received intelligence that suggests the humans may already know about Operation Silent Dawn." Dr. Quinnala's eyes widened. "That is impossible. How could they know?" Jake pulled out a data pad with fabricated intelligence reports. My sources in the shipping industry have detected unusual patterns in human cargo movements. They are stockpiling medical supplies and moving population centers away from major cities. It appears they are preparing for a biological attack. The doctor studied the false data, her expression growing more worried. If this is true, it changes everything. If the humans are prepared for the cleanser, it might not be effective. There is more, Jake continued. I have heard rumors that the humans have developed automatic weapon systems that will activate if their population drops below a certain level. If we eliminate them, we might trigger a galactic war that could destroy us all. Dr. Quinn Nala looked genuinely frightened. I need to report this to the Dominion Council immediately. Jake had planted the seeds of doubt. Now he needed to water them with more rumors and half-truths. He spent the rest of the day moving between different alien groups, spreading carefully crafted lies designed to make them paranoid about each. To the Zephyrians, he suggested that the Vorthan Syndicate was planning to use the biological weapon technology to create a plague that would only affect Zephyrian biology. To the Vorthan, he hinted that the Zephyrians were secretly planning to claim human space stations for their own use. Each lie was crafted to exploit existing tensions and fears. Jake knew that these alien species had been competing with each other for thousands of years. Their alliance against humanity was temporary and fragile. All he needed to do was remind them why they did not trust each other, the effects of his campaign became visible during the afternoon presentations. When General Korth Zane announced the final fleet positions for Operation Silent Dawn, several species began demanding guarantees about territory distribution. Why do the Altarians need so many ships near the agricultural worlds? Asked a hegemony representative. Are they planning to secure those planets for their own use? General Korth Zane looked confused. The fleet positions were determined by tactical considerations, not territorial claims. That is not what we heard, said a Centauri diplomat. We have received intelligence that suggests the Altarians have been secretly surveying human worlds for colonization. The room erupted in arguments. Species that had been allies for centuries were suddenly accusing each other of betrayal and hidden agendas. Jake watched with satisfaction as the careful unity of the Dominion Council began to fracture. High Consul. Vexthari tried to restore order, but the damage was done. The Zephyrians were demanding proof that the Vorthan Syndicate was not planning to use biological weapons against them. The Vorthan were accusing the Zephyrians of planning to steal human technology. The Centauri were questioning why the hegemony needed so many ships for a simple biological attack. The final blow came when Dr. Queen Nala presented her concerns about human preparedness. We have received intelligence that suggests the humans may already know about our plans, she announced. If this is true, Operation Silent Dawn could be a trap. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. If the humans were prepared for a biological attack, the cleanser might not work. If the humans had automatic weapon systems, destroying them might trigger a galactic war. Jake could see the fear and doubt spreading through the room. The aliens who had been confident and united the day before were now questioning everything. Some were demanding postponement of the operation. Others were insisting that they needed more intelligence before proceeding. High Consul Vexthari called for a recess, but Jake could see that the damage was irreversible. The Dominion Council was falling apart, torn by suspicion and fear. The conspiracy that had taken years to build was crumbling in a matter of hours. Jake felt a moment of triumph, but it was short-lived. As the aliens filed out of the conference room, he noticed that several security officers were watching him carefully. His campaign of disinformation had been successful, but it had also drawn attention to himself. Commander Rex Theta approached him as he was leaving the conference room. Kethvar, she said, I would like to speak with you privately. There are some questions about the intelligence reports you have been sharing. Jake's blood ran cold. His cover was blown, and now he was face to face with one of the most dangerous aliens in the galaxy. He had succeeded in disrupting Operation Silent Dawn, but he might not live to see the results of his work. "Of course, Commander," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I am always happy to help with security matters." As they walked toward the security office, Jake began planning his escape. He had bought humanity some time, but now he needed to survive long enough to get his intelligence back to Earth. The real battle was just beginning. Jake followed Commander Rix Theta through the corridors of the station, his mind racing with escape plans. The security office was in the most heavily guarded section of the diplomatic district. If he was going to make a run for it, he needed to act before they reached their destination. "Tell me about these intelligence sources of yours," the commander said as they walked. "It is remarkable how much detailed information you have been able to gather about human activities." Jake kept his voice steady, still maintaining his Zephyrian accent. "I have many contacts in the shipping industry. Traders hear all kinds of rumors as they travel between systems." "Yes, but these are very specific rumors," Commander Rix Theta replied. "Movement patterns, weapon systems, medical preparations. This is the kind of information that usually comes from military intelligence, not cargo pilots." They were approaching the security checkpoint now. Jake could see armed guards waiting ahead, and he knew that once he was inside the secure area, escape would be impossible. He had to act now. "Commander," Jake said, stopping suddenly, "I think there is something you should know about the hegemony's true plans for Operation Silent Dawn." Commander Rix Theta stopped and turned to face him. "What do you mean?" Jake leaned in close, as if sharing a secret. "I have heard that they plan to blame the biological attack on the Alterians. After the humans are eliminated, they will claim that your people acted without authorization. This will give them an excuse to seize Alterian territory as punishment." The commander's eyes narrowed. "That is a serious accusation. Do you have proof?" Jake reached into his jacket as if pulling out a data pad, but instead his hand closed around the emergency beacon he had hidden there. "I have recordings of their private conversations," he said, "but I am afraid the files are encrypted." "Perhaps we should." Jake activated the beacon and threw it down the corridor behind them. The device exploded in a brilliant flash of light and sound, temporarily blinding everyone in the hallway. In the confusion, Jake shed his alien disguise and revealed his true human appearance. "Security alert!" Commander Rix Theta shouted, but Jake was already moving. He sprinted toward the nearest maintenance hatch, his human reflexes and speed catching the aliens off guard. Jake dove through the maintenance hatch and into the service tunnels that ran throughout the station. He had memorized these passages during his 3 years undercover, knowing that he might someday need to use them for escape. Behind him, he could hear alarms blaring and the sound of pursuit. The aliens were shouting orders in a dozen different languages, but Jake had a head start, and he knew where he was going. He reached the communication center and activated the emergency transmitter he had hidden there years ago. His message was brief but urgent. Operation Silent Dawn, biological weapon, 47 days, all colonies targeted. Trust no one. This is Jake Morrison, call sign Raven 7. Confirm receipt. The message was compressed and encrypted, then broadcast on emergency frequencies that would reach human space. Jake could only hope that someone would be listening. Security forces were pounding on the communication center door when Jake finished his transmission. He quickly uploaded all the recordings from the seminar to the station's data network, then activated a virus he had planted in the alien computer systems. The virus would corrupt their files and disrupt their communications, buying him precious time. Jake blasted his way out of the communication center using a plasma cutter he had stolen from the maintenance area. The aliens were expecting him to try to reach the docking base, but Jake had a different plan. He made his way to the waste disposal section, where he had hidden a modified escape pod 3 years ago. The pod was small and designed to look like space debris, but it was equipped with a quantum drive that could get him to human space in a matter of hours. Jake had spent months preparing for this moment, and now all his planning was paying off. He reached the waste disposal area just as alien security forces were sealing off the docking base. Jake climbed into his hidden pod and began the launch sequence. The pod would be ejected with the regular garbage, making it nearly impossible to track Dot. As the pod launched, Jake triggered one final surprise. The feedback pulse he had planted in the station's power grid activated, causing a massive system failure that knocked out communications throughout the station. The aliens would not be able to coordinate their response or warn their fleets about the security breach. Jake's pod drifted away from the station, hidden among the clouds of debris and waste. He activated the quantum drive and set course for the nearest human outpost, praying that his message had gotten through. The journey to human space took 6 hours, during which Jake had time to process everything that had happened. He had successfully disrupted the alien conspiracy, but he knew it was only a temporary victory. The Dominion Council would eventually overcome their suspicions and reorganize their plans. Humanity needed to prepare for war. Jake's emergency beacon was picked up by the USS Defiant, a stealth reconnaissance ship that had been patrolling the border regions. Captain Lisa Hayes himself came aboard the escape pod to debrief Jake personally. Dr. Morrison, Captain Hayes said as Jake was brought to the ship's medical bay, "We received your transmission. Command wants a full report immediately." Jake looked at the captain with exhausted eyes. "Lisa, you need to get this information to Earth right now. The aliens are planning to wipe us out completely. We have maybe 40 days before they reorganize and launch their attack." As the medical staff checked Jake for injuries, he gave Captain Hayes a complete briefing on everything he had learned. The biological weapon, the coordinated attack plan, the betrayal by species Earth considered allies. All of it poured out. In a desperate rush to share the intelligence, Captain Hayes listened with growing horror. "Jake, this is beyond anything we imagined. A conspiracy involving 12 major alien civilizations. Biological weapons designed specifically to target human DNA? We need to get you to Earth immediately." "No," Jake said firmly. "We need to get this information to every human colony, every military base, every research station. The aliens have been monitoring our communications for years. We cannot trust normal channels." The USS Defiant changed course for Earth, pushing its engines to maximum speed. During the journey, Jake worked with the ship's intelligence officers to prepare a comprehensive report on the alien threat. Every detail from the seminar was recorded and analyzed. Jake also shared his recordings of the alien presentations, including the technical specifications for the cleanser biological weapon. Human scientists would need this information to develop countermeasures, assuming they had enough time. "The thing that worries me most," Jake told Captain Hayes, "is how long they have been planning this. The attacks on Titan 7, Kepler 2, New Colorado, those were not accidents. They have been testing weapons on us for years, and we never knew." Captain Hayes nodded grimly. "How many people died in those tests?" "Thousands," Jake replied. "And they were just the beginning. The aliens see us as nothing more than laboratory animals. They have been studying our weaknesses, learning how to kill us most efficiently." When the USS Defiant reached Earth, Jake was immediately transported to military headquarters. Within hours, his intelligence report was being distributed to every human colony, military installation, and research facility in human space. The response was immediate and massive. Human colonies began stockpiling medical supplies and moving populations away from major cities. Military forces were placed on high alert. Research teams began working around the clock to develop countermeasures to the biological weapon. But Jake knew that humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their military. It was their unity. The aliens had tried to use the festival of unity against them, but instead it became a symbol of human determination. On worlds throughout human space, the Festival of Unity was transformed from a celebration into a declaration of war. Humans gathered not to party, but to prepare. Children were taught survival skills. Adults formed militia groups. Scientists shared research freely across all human worlds. Jake stood in the command center of Earth's military headquarters, watching the preparations unfold across human space. Admiral Kate Rogers approached him with the latest intelligence reports. "Jake, your disruption of their conspiracy bought us crucial time," she said. "Our analysts believe we have delayed their attack by at least 6 months, maybe longer. The alien alliance is falling apart, just like you planned." Jake nodded, but his expression remained serious. "They will reorganize eventually. And when they do, they will be even more careful. We cannot count on getting another intelligence breakthrough like this." "Then we need to make sure we are ready," Admiral Rogers replied. "The President has authorized Operation Defiant Dawn, a preemptive strike against the alien conspiracy. We are going to hit them before they can hit us." Jake looked out at the stars, thinking about the aliens who were probably still arguing among themselves on Kepler-7 station. "Good," he said. "They spent so much time studying human nature, but they missed the most important thing about us." "What is that?" Admiral Rogers asked. Jake smiled grimly. "When you threaten our families, our children, our entire species, we do not just defend ourselves. We make sure the threat never comes back." As Jake watched the